features, strategies, and particular objects that were removed from Clash of Clans. Fair warning for those who have been playing for ages, you might already know most, if not all of these on the list. After all, Supercell rarely likes to remove something they already added. But for those who started playing more recently, like the past couple of years, here's a list of all those things that are no longer in the game or no longer possible to do. Just keep in mind though, we won't be mentioning any special event obstacles like trees or pumpkins, because those were meant to be limited, so maybe we'll save that for a different video. So yeah, let's get right into it. Rare stone obstacle. You might have noticed how stones were present when you first started playing, but since stones can't regrow once you've removed them, they were gone forever, so most people don't have a stone anymore. There's a handful of stones that are randomly placed in all of these villages, and they're pretty common, but there's one particular stone that is not like the others. In early versions of the game, this odd looking stone was able to appear in any newly created base like any other stone, except it became unobtainable soon after the game's release. So, since most players removed the stones back in the day to clear up their village, there are now only a few players left known to still have this stone in their village. It spawned for a short period of time and never again. Fun fact though, the stone actually reappeared in some new single player maps that were added in late 2018, and that's pretty cool. Global chat. This feature was in the game since the beginning of time. It was a launch feature and used by many to find new members for the clan and just have some fun conversations. Or cringy, I guess. Unfortunately, there were also major problems with this global chat because of the game's low age requirement. Essentially, that chat would usually be home to swearing, threats, spam, and phishing. On September 2019, Supercell announced the feature would get removed in the next update, and they would instead be focusing more on the recruiting feature. Part of it had to do with toxicity, but mostly due to two reasons: threats of violence and child predators. Two things they can't really control unless they hire hundreds of moderators for each and every language that is spoken in the game. Do you know how difficult that is? So, Global was removed, and even though it's missed to this day, it was for the best. Waterfall. The original Waterfall was an iconic part of the game's map design. It was already part of the game since launch and it looked pretty neat. But the developers ran into a problem. Because this was 2012, most phones like the iPhone 4 couldn't handle the major graphical power the Waterfall needed. So phones would end up lagging and running at a lower frame rate. It just didn't run well. On November of 2012, the Waterfall was removed. All that was left for about 8 years was pictures and stories about the Waterfall. Now, although there has been a Waterfall added back recently in March of 2020, due to phones now being able to support practically AAA games on it, the Waterfall isn't the same, and we didn't have one for 8 years. For that reason, I still wanted to include this in the video, and because of course, it's a very iconic part of the game's history. Sell buildings. Yes, at one point of the game you could sell buildings, and very important ones for that matter. You could sell your storages, clan castles, defenses, everything but your town hall. Well, there was that one glitch that let you almost sell it, but I don't think it actually worked if you pressed sell. Anyways, this feature was removed in the winter of 2012 for very obvious reasons. Too many players were selling very important buildings in their base, and it just didn't make sense to keep this useless feature. Why would you ever need to sell a key part of your village? The only thing you could now sell after these changes was decorations. If you ended up needing space, you could always sell it back for a small percent of the original price, because decorations weren't that important in the game, they were just decorations. Which brings me to the next one. Selling decorations. This one isn't as a big deal as selling buildings altogether, but for years you could sell decorations you bought up until December of 2018. Instead of selling decorations back to the shop, you could now stash them like you can in Heyday. Stash basically means putting it away until you want to use it again. With the new stash feature though, the ability to sell decorations was removed altogether because it was no longer needed. Blue walls. Back in the day, the max walls for a Town Hall 10 looked like this. a very blue electric style. This remained that way for years, but when Supercell was ready to unveil the Town Hall 11, they also decided to change up the style of these level 11 walls. The main reason for this was just the blue wall seemed out of place. It didn't make sense that everything in Town Hall 10 was fiery and red and hot, lava, and then out of nowhere you had these blue electric walls that didn't fit anywhere. Once again, it just seemed out of place. 100%. Then the walls were changed to accommodate the Town Hall 10 and Town Hall 11 a little more, and now we have these. Now, we have other blue walls today, but those aren't the same walls, and they actually match the corresponding Town Hall. Okay, so these next few items on the list aren't objects or features, so to speak, but rather things you could once do but can't anymore. Starting off with lightning looting. This was a huge problem in the early days. People would cook up a few lightning spells and go out, find a base with tons of dark elixir and drop it right on the storage and end the battle. Obviously this was super annoying because all they had to do to get tons of dark elixir was drop spells on other people's storages. That is until June of 2015. Supercell implemented a storage shield that would protect the storages from damaging spells and preventing people from using this strategy. Thank God that's gone. Upgrading level 7 and 8 walls with elixir. When the ability to upgrade walls with elixir was first added in September of 2014, the walls had to be a minimum of level 7, and then it was later changed to level 9 and above about 3 months later. I don't believe there was any specific reason for this, but I did read somewhere that it was impacting the lower Town Hall economy. Since everyone was using their extra elixir to upgrade those walls, people were having a hard time finding elixir. This isn't such a huge issue in the higher Town Halls though, so that's why the minimum was just increased, not completely removed. No personal break. Back in the day, you could practically stay on 24/7. Literally, there was no personal break that would force you to go offline. This new personal break feature was done to combat a problem in the leaderboards with people staying on at all times to avoid getting attacked. And people came up with smart ways to keep their iPads or iPhones on 24/7, like for example building a robot that would tap your screen. Supercell's answer to this was simply forcing a personal break after so many hours of playing, and I think it works pretty well. Cooking spells with gold. In a way, this wasn't removed because it was instead swapped with elixir. Before the swap though, you had no specific choice but to cook with gold. Supercell changed this because it made more sense to keep gold for upgrades in the village and elixir to train and upgrade troops, which was a smart decision. Inferno Tower blocking heal effect. It used to be that if your troops were getting healed and an Inferno Tower targeted, it would bypass that healing effect, or in other terms, block that healing effect. This was terrible to say the least. It kind of made healers and heal spells useless for a minute there. On December of 2017 though, this ability was removed. And a few months later in March, the Inferno Tower's multi-target was given a slight buff to help with this because the Inferno Towers had become weak. Tesla's 2x damage to P.E.K.K.A.s. In October of 2016, Supercell ended up removing Tesla's ability to deal double damage to P.E.K.K.A.s. The reason was due to underwhelming P.E.K.K.A. usage. Since Tesla's became more powerful, the P.E.K.K.A.'s use lowered. They had no other choice but to remove this ability. After all, why should one defense deal more damage to a specific troop, you know? We saw something similar to this before that as well. The Eagle Artillery's ability to deal 3 times more damage to golems. The Eagle Artillery didn't originally have this ability, but it was added shortly after its launch, and then removed a few months later due to the same reason as the Tesla. Golem attacks were simply weaker now, and they had to remove this. Skeleton triggering traps. This was removed because skeletons would activate all traps before the actual army got into the base, making witch-based armies extremely powerful. For example, go wee wee. People would send in mass witches and their skeletons would go ahead and activate all the bombs so that when the witches got into the base, there were no bombs exploding next to them. So they made it so that skeletons can no longer do this. I believe they also gave the witch a buff because of this. Healers immune to air traps. At first they weren't immune, but then they were made immune to boost the troops' usage. Then they backtracked on this and made them no longer immune to traps. It's believed that Supercell was just experimenting. They saw that healers had a low usage rate, so they ended up adding this immunity, but then they saw that it was too powerful and they just said, okay, never mind. We'll go back to how it was before. I think it was better that way. Town Hall sniping. In 2015, when Town Hall 11 came out, Town Hall sniping was a very controversial subject. This was a preferred farming way, because while you protected your base's loot, other people looking for trophies simply took the Town Hall and left. Supercell didn't like this, and it was like this for years until 2015 when they had enough. They practically made the Town Hall a very important part of the base, and you now had to protect the Town Hall. Putting your Town Hall outside no longer gave a cheap shield, and you were also risking some of your base's loot. So yeah, it really didn't work anymore. Luring heroes. This was a huge issue for clan wars. Basically what the issue was, heroes would basically have eagle sight and they would see anything happening across the base. So if you dropped a barbarian on the edge of the base, the king or queen would notice and would walk half across the base, and that was hero luring. Because then once they arrived at the edge of the base, you could then take them out with like a dragon or something. Supercell ended up fixing this. The heroes will no longer detect anything half across the map and walk over there. Instead, they have to be closer to the target. And this is very great for clan wars and high trophy pushing. Poisoning clan castle troops. This was also a problem and a strategy used most commonly in wars and high level trophy pushing, where people would simply lure out the clan castle and drop a poison once they were just sitting there, and they would all die. You know, they weren't moving. There was a poison on top of them, and that's it. That's all you had to do to lure the clan castle and take them out. This was later changed to troops now being able to flee from the poison spell, which is very smart. You gotta give props to Supercell for coming up with these ideas. If you lure the clan castle troops out of the clan castle and drop a poison, they will now walk away from it. Once again, this was one of those strategies that kind of just ruined the point of having a clan castle sometimes, and then it was fixed. So guys, I think that should be it for this entire list of things that were removed. I have no idea how much we wrote. I think it's in the 15 or something, I don't know. Once again, I said there will be no decoration